From the 11 Alive studios, this is The Georgia Vote with Faith Jesse and Zach Merchant.
Well, good morning and welcome into the Georgia Vote. Faith is off this week. As Congress continues its two-week break, we saw another newsworthy town hall in Georgia. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Republican from the state's 14th district in northwest Georgia, hosted the event Tuesday night in Ackworth. Early on, protesters shouted at the Congresswoman, drawing police attention. 3 people were arrested. Police used a taser on one man who they said disregarded their order to leave peacefully. Congresswoman Greene's office had carefully screened the audience, and most were in her camp. But throughout the event, there were occasional bursts of dissent. Some got police escorts out of the room, some left on their own. After the town hall, the Congresswoman gave her assessment.
And how people should handle their businesses in the voting booth. There's no reason for screaming, yelling, ridiculous, outrageous protesting. That disrupts the entire event for every single person that is there.
I'll give you a copy. Well, I'm glad to see you.
Now, critics were quick to point out the times that Congresswoman Greene interrupted President Biden's State of the Union address. She did so in 2022, 2023, and 2024. Congresswoman Greene says she held the town hall in Ackworth because it is a new part of the 14th district, and residents there had not yet seen much of her. Also this week, 2 Democratic lawmakers, U.S. Senator Raphael Warnock and Congressman Hank Johnson, joined a protest at the CDC here in Atlanta. They spoke to the crowd and encouraged them to continue to stand against mass layoffs underway within the federal government.
They're out here standing up for themselves, and they need to know that there are people in the halls of Washington, D.C. who are standing up for them.
The Associated Press reports about 2,400 jobs were expected to be cut from the CDC as of April 1st. It was a busy week for Governor Brian Kemp. He signed 2 bills Wednesday involving tax cuts and tax refunds. He's scheduled to sign what he calls tort reform on Monday. The governor also talked with our Faith Jesse. They discussed his signature piece of legislation and his thought process as he decides his political future. But we begin with President Trump's tariffs and the global effect.
Are we moving too fast? Would you do anything differently with what things are going right now?
Well, listen, the one worry I've said for months is going down this road is, potentially can increase cost or inflation, and then also create uncertainty with the consumer. In other regards, erode consumer confidence. And I think that's something that, I've said was one of my biggest fears of this. But also said that, President Trump has a really good argument to make of going after countries like China that have really been unfair trade partners. And I think the American people, and I know myself, support that. So I thought the move that he made the other day to put the 90-day pause, on the big tariffs and really focus on China is the way to go. They keep saying there's a lot of people coming that are wanting to make deals. I take them at their word for that, and I hope that's the case.
So you see that's a negotiation?
Yeah, and I think it's President Trump is a negotiator, and I think him getting people to the table. I think he'll cut good trade deals for our country, and I think in the short term that will be fine. If this drags out a long time, I think it will be problematic.
What would you suggest?
Well, I would suggest getting some of the trade deals done, which I think is exactly what they're working on. I've listened and read a lot and heard long, in-depth interviews from, the people that are engaged in those efforts. And I take them at their word that there are people coming to the table and there's good things that are happening that we don't know about. But we just have to wait and see. I mean, it in my eyes, needs to be a short-term solution.
You have said in the past that you're in agreement with right-sizing some portions of the government. Do you think that the way that it's being handled is too fast, or should things be pulled back and maybe examined a little bit?
Yeah, I think it would be really hard for me to answer that question because, you hear, the one bad thing that happened to one person, which is unfortunate for sure, and maybe could have been handled in a different or better way. But then you also hear the other side of the story of waste, fraud, and abuse that they've come upon, just some of the outrageous things that have been going on that they're actually finding and cutting back on. And, there's been a lot of debate like around the Medicaid program. If they're cutting Medicaid because we're not going to give benefits to illegal aliens that are in the state of California, then that is something that I can certainly support, because that would leave more money to help us get rid of our debts and deficits and, help drive interest rates down because we're spending too much money at the government, and really right-sizing things back to a pre-COVID environment, plus the rate of inflation. And I think when you explain to people that like going back to a budget that is where we were pre-COVID, plus adding the rate of inflation there, is very reasonable.
What does a campaign for a Senator Kemp look like?
Yeah, I couldn't answer that question just yet. I've told people I was really focused. I mean, I knew how hard our legislative session was going to be. I know how much work I felt like we needed to do in my next to last legislative session for the people of our state. Tort reforms, besides the tax cuts and tax refunds and hurricane disaster relief and other really important things that we did, I knew how hard the tort reform fight was going to be. And, most people in the stage that I'm in right now, next to the last session, probably wouldn't have tackled such a tough issue, but I really felt like that was something very important for our business environment in our state. I feel very strongly about that, and I felt like it was worth the risk of being defeated in that effort. Thankfully, we were not. We won that battle, and we won that battle for the people of our state, and I think it's going to be good for our state in the long run. And so I was really focused on that. I tried to put off any political, decisions, discussions until we got out of session. Now that I'm out, we've got bill signings we're doing. Our daughter's getting married in just a few days, and so I'm focused on that, but I am starting to do a little diligence on what, my political career looks like or not over the next several weeks or month or so, couple of months, and then we'll let people know once we get down that road a little bit further. But I just have started that.
Faith's full interview with Governor Kemp is streaming right now on 11 Alive Plus. You can download and watch for free on your TV right now. It is time now for our political roundtable. Today we have Republican strategist Deanna Harris. Right now, she serves as managing partner at Midnight Rider Consulting. She is also a member of the Conservative Policy Leadership Institute Alumni Board. And also joining us, Val Sabak, Assistant Vice President at McGuire Woods Consulting and former Executive Director of the Georgia House Democratic Caucus. We just heard from Governor Brian Kemp there. Val, I want to start with you. Are all the conversations about who may challenge Senator Jon Ossoff in 2026 starting with Governor Brian Kemp?
Yes. People, we've been seeing folks kind of lining up on the Republican side saying, well, we're going to wait to see what Governor Kemp does or what he doesn't do, and then decide if they want to jump in and run against Senator Ossoff. Right. So that's really the starting point, is what is the governor going to do? Deanna,
you're a Republican strategist. Is Governor Brian Kemp the first draft choice for most Republican strategists?
Of course he is. And actually, he's recently met with the majority Senate leader and the chair of the Senate Republican Committee. And so wondering what those conversations were like, of course, but we would hope so. That would be a really good matchup. And we would love to have that win, of course.
What factors do you think he is weighing? Because you saw Faith ask that question. He's been asked it in other interviews recently, too, and he still hasn't given an affirmative thumbs up or thumbs down yet. What is he weighing right now?
I'm guessing it would be between, am I going to be a U.S. Senator or U.S. President?
You think that's what he's mulling right now? Those are big races.
I've heard people say that, for sure.
Val, I have heard from strategists both on the Democratic and the Republican side that Senator Jon Ossoff's seat it was described by another frequent panelist, Stephen Lawson, on the show earlier this week. He said that seat has a big red circle drawn around it. Republicans really want to flip that seat. Mm-hmm. Democrats really want to hold on to it. What's the strategy for Democrats to keep Jon Ossoff in the Senate?
I mean, I think, look, we have a new president, or it's kind of new president, coming up in the midterms. The disapproval rate is growing by the day. We are seeing cuts left and right. We just saw cuts to the CDC. Folks are losing their federal positions. And I think that riding that wave, I think Senator Ossoff has a good argument to make to people to say, look, this is the work that I've been doing in Congress or in the U.S. Senate. This is the work that I can continue to do, and this is the work that I can continue to deliver to Georgians.
On the other side, Deanna, Republicans, what do you expect to be the main themes of the challengers campaign, whoever that might be, if it's Governor Kemp or somebody else who emerges to try to flip that seat Jon Ossoff currently occupies and turn it Republican?
Right, so I'm guessing when you say challengers, this is just for our primary purpose, right? We'll start there. Most folks are going to want to ride that Trump wave and do the cuts and, speak about lowering the cuts in the budget as well. And so those are some of the things that Republican voters really like. I don't think they have a problem with things that President Trump are doing. So that's something they would want to attach onto for the primary, but maybe bring it back to the center a little bit when it comes to the state of Georgia, when it comes to that general election, right? So the things that Governor Kemp has done, like his recent signing of the $1 million tax rebate for lots of Georgians where they get up to $500 back in their state taxes. That's a big win for him. And I think that's something that he can really ride into the sunset with and use that as a good, moment for him.
We've got about 20 seconds. You talk about that distinction between the primary and then the general election, because those are different things. Fal, I want to ask you this. Is it the goal, is it the hope of Democrats that Governor Kemp doesn't jump into this race and then Republicans have to have a more contentious primary battle inside of their own party?
Yeah, I think that would be the ideal scenario. I think ultimately, like Deanna said earlier, if Governor Kemp does decide to jump in, I do think it is still a 50-50 race. I do not believe that it's going to be a 60-40 kind of runaway train one way or another. Going through a primary process, yeah, it's certainly going to be a strong test for whoever's going to get out in the general.
Fal, I'm so sorry. I got to jump in here. But that's good news because we have so much to talk about, and we are not done on the panel. Stay with us. We will be right back after this. Welcome back. As Congress continues its budget negotiations, there are questions about the future of funding for Medicare. And federal workforce cuts inspired by DOGE remain top of mind as agencies across the country, including right here at the Atlanta-based CDC, feel the impact. We took those questions to Congressman Barry Loudermilk, a Republican representing Georgia's 11th district. Are you supportive of these DOGE cuts?
Well, yes, and it depends on the way they're doing it too, because one thing I think the administration found out, something I've been working on for 6 years, they can't fire a lot of these people. But it takes at minimum a year to get somebody off the payroll. To actually fire somebody, it takes a year in the federal government.
It sounds like when we drill down to it, your real concerns are twofold. One is about making it easier for employees who are flagged as problem employees to be cycled out of the federal workforce. And in this other bucket is a concern about general efficiency.
Right. You look at it from in the private sector, you may have one person doing a particular job that in the government sector you have 5 or 10. And it depends on the different agencies. And so that's why I think they're taking a larger look at this and trying to bring some efficiency in, because it is taxpayer dollars. And we can't continue down the path that we're on. We are going broke as a nation.
You worry about the national debt?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's overwhelming when you look at it.
Let's talk about a major expense of the United States, and it's been a topic that has been in the news a lot recently, and that's Medicare and Medicaid. Very expensive programs on the federal budget.
Right.
Also programs that lots and lots of people across the country and here in Georgia rely on for major health care needs.
Right.
There have been questions about the future of those programs, so I want to put this question to you flat out. Will you ever cast a vote that would reduce access to Medicare or Medicaid programs?
Not to the people that they are designed to go to.
What does that mean?
Well, that means that there's a lot of fraud. We know there's a lot of fraud. There's a lot of abuse within the system. And you're talking about Medicaid, that's something that's state controlled, but yet federally funded, right? And so you have instances where states are not monitoring who's getting the aid, who's actually getting the support out of that. And so we need to have the states drill down and make sure that they're qualifying everybody that's receiving that support. And so That's why you have to qualify the statement is, I never want to cut it for those who need it. That's a program that is there, and it disenfranchises those who actually need that level of help when you have people that are abusing it.
How do you figure that out? How do you parse it out in a program that large with so many entities and so many people impacted? I can imagine there may be some folks who hear your answer and think they may be a little unsettled to hear that your answer was not a flat no, I'll never vote to ratchet back these programs.
Well, it's because when you look at it, if people are receiving it that shouldn't, then we need to cut that, right? But we're not going to cut the services to those who actually qualify and who need it. And so when you look at especially Medicaid, there's things that Congress can do, and this is what we'll be doing in that reconciliation process.
Well, our full interview is available right now on 11 Alive Plus, and this is a perfect time to bring back in our political experts, Deanna Harris, Val Sabak. Deanna, I want to start with you. There's all this conversation, all this talk about the ongoing federal workforce cuts inspired by the Department of Government Efficiency. There are questions about funding for certain programs within the Medicare and Medicaid space. You heard Congressman Loudermilk give his views on that. There's a lot of cutting, a lot of talk of cutting happening right now. Do Republicans see this as a winning issue?
So I think that mostly if it's a primary cut, it's a winning, if it's a cut for the primary elections, yes, that's a winning issue. But as the congressman stated, we don't want to make those changes and cuts to the individuals who do need it. Now, as far as DOGE goes, they have been finding fraud and the things like illegal immigrants receiving the Medicaid or Medicare that they shouldn't, right? And those are funds that could, go to the individuals who do need that assistance. I think in Georgia, we're doing a great job on making sure the ones who need it receive it. So that wouldn't be an issue that we would have here, but I see how it could be in other states like California.
What's the Democrats' perspective on all this?
Look, when you have a house and you have like a room that needs something fixed in it, you don't burn down the whole house just to fix that one room. Right. And so I think that's what the talking point on the Democratic side is. When you're moving so quickly and making all these cuts, and should there be studies done to, sure, absolutely, talk about the fraud and waste and everything. But to go out and say, well, this program just needs to be cut all across the board, I mean, that's something that's not going to resonate very well with voters across the general electorate.
Do you think elected Democrats are getting that message across enough to voters right now?
I think they're starting to lay the groundwork for it. I think that one of the good and bad things about this administration is that there's so much to touch on. And so I think now is the time to really lay the groundwork on these cuts are happening. They're hurting real people, everyday people, because we're seeing in these town hall meetings, Republicans who are upset at the Republican elected officials saying, this is the system that we paid into and we're paying for. Why are we not?
And let's end with this, Deanna. Last word to you. You mentioned the town halls. We just saw Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's town hall earlier this week in Ackworth. It got a little rowdy.
Right.
Deanna, is that good for the party or bad for the party?
Well, those things happen, right? And that's just the way that it goes sometimes. And she's in a new district, a new area. Ackworth wasn't previously a part of her district, where some of the folks from the 14th are a little bit more far right, because I've even been drawn into her district as well. And so you'll get some of those little responses, but I think it's just a part of the process.
A part of the process that involved tasers this time. That we don't see so often.
Got a little rough.
A lot going on in Georgia politics. As always, so much to talk to and talk about. Right now, we're going to break, but we will be right back after this. For those who have their sights set on running for political office, there is no time like now to get into the race, even though the election is more than a year away. And there is an interesting 2026 primary battle coming into focus. Congressman David Scott represents Georgia's 13th district. He has served in that role since 2003, but now fellow Democrats are lining up to try to take his job. There is a fresh batch of challengers for 2026. That includes Everton Blair, the former Gwinnett County School Board chair, who announced his candidacy this week. Also in the race, State Senator Emanuel Jones from Decatur. The primary still more than a year away. But as the political calendar continues to move forward, these early announcements are increasingly becoming the rule and not the exception. Well, stay with us. The Georgia Vote continues with a very special tribute right after this. We typically end the show with our Voice of the Voter segment, But this week, we are honoring the man who made lifting up those voices his life's work. This week, we lost our friend and longtime colleague, John Shurik. He was a journalist who set the gold standard in our newsroom for 43 years before retiring just last year. Caitlin Ross looks back on his remarkable career and the legacy he leaves behind.
A walk through Piedmont Park or a quiet morning along an ocean beach, John Shurik wrote, would make for a perfect day. But really, he said, a perfect day is doing what I love most, trying to see a little clearer into the hopes, triumphs, and needs of our community. For 43 years in Atlanta, he did just that.
And then you're off to get the story.
Known as the poet of 11 Alive, his words weren't just scripts, they were soul.
As if home was reaching out to bring him home.
He wove together the quiet beauty of everyday life in Atlanta for nearly 50 years. In a suit and tie, no matter the weather, John chased truth, accountability, and the closest gas station selling peanut butter M&Ms.
In one of the most powerful expressions of love and farewell, there were no words, no hymns, no prayers.
John's stories were filled with heart and humanity.
So a proud mother has all around her now the embrace of grateful neighbors.
He once wrote he was trying to offer some inspiration and always, always trying to make my best better for them, the people whose lives he honored with his work and his words.
In his final years, John Lewis, the old lion at the height of his powers,
let us vote!
Was at heart still the 20-year-old freedom fighter.
11 Alive was his home for more than 4 decades, where he gave voice to everyone in our community.
This night would forever be about what a dear friend has been giving them, a gift they'll take with them the rest of their lives.
The work he did, it was never about himself.
If you know that you've done such a good job that they don't notice you, they notice the story, then you can feel like you've succeeded.
He covered every story with the same dignity, grace, and unwavering respect.
They left the church with the brisk breeze at their backs and leading them her legacy. Not only how much she was loved, but how much she loved from a heart bigger than her 96 years could hold.
After half a century in journalism, John wrote of his retirement, I knew I was going to say goodbye, with a smile and a grateful heart to the career I have loved. That love. The love John poured into every story, every word, and every life he touched will live on. As he signs off one final time.
In Atlanta, John Shurik, 11 Alive News.
John meant so much to this city and to everyone in this newsroom. He is so missed. We'll see you next week.